Welcome to Porto. It's a beautiful city here. It's absolutely overrun with tourists like me, contributing to all kinds of social problems in this city, including skyrocketing rents, for example. But if you're gonna come to a place like this and contribute to all these problems, you may as well get some amazing travel photos out of it. Right? Right? Yeah, well, let me show you how. I've been lucky enough to live in several different cities, both in North America and in Europe. That's a great thing. There's one thing that I've learned. It can take years, if not decades, to really discover a place. So if you think that you're really gonna get some of the best photos ever taken in some place that you're traveling to in just a couple of days or a week, it's not gonna happen. I used to think that. I kind of have an over-optimistic personality about myself and what I can achieve. And I used to be a little bit more disappointed about my travel photos until I kind of discovered, well, it wasn't my fault. It's not my skills that's the problem. It's really just time. You've arrived at your destination, you're taking pictures, you're having a good time. I think it's always good to keep in mind, what are you shooting for? Is it just going on social media? Is it gonna go in a photo album? On social media, I think it's always good to fill the frame a little bit more. Make the things in your shot just like a little bit bigger. I would say the opposite for something like a family photo album. You can leave a little more scenery in there, kind of back up a little bit. Another example, maybe you want to use it on your phone as a background or on your computer. Well, first of all, make sure you're shooting the correct orientation. I would always say leave a little extra sky, because sky looks nice. You know, you can just leave a little bit of stuff in the bottom, and I think that always makes it look a little nicer. The third tip I can tell you, know your trip. Where are you going? You go to a city, you go to the countryside, you go to an island. These can influence one of the primary things you need to think about, which is how are you going to get around? If you're in a city, definitely take the public transportation. Buses and trains, this is going to get you to the places where the locals go, but it always pays to do your own research and know what kind of things you want to see before you start heading out. And that leads me to something else. You have to be organized. Even if you really like to just kind of wander around and have some unplanned sort of, discovery time, well, plan in the unplanned stuff.
The chances are that your travel list looks pretty similar to literally everyone else visiting. European tourists are also probably more organized than you are. So don't leave too much to chance. Buy those tickets, book that tour, reserve a table at that restaurant. Otherwise, you might miss out.
Now we get to talk about my favorite part, which is the gear selection for your trip. And just generally speaking, take your smallest camera, because then you're actually going to take it with you when you go somewhere. So that's why I stick with something like this. I really like this camera because it's simplistic. It only has one lens. There's no changing, there's no zooming. It's very simple. I'm really loving Fujifilm cameras lately because of the film simulations. The best part about that is you ain't got to edit your pictures when you're done. You just come home and they already look good. And that saves so much time. The last thing I want to do when I come back from a trip is edit a bunch of pictures. I just want to send them out to my family and just be done with it. But if you have an interchangeable lens camera, try and stick to one lens if you can. If you really have to bring a second lens, then I would definitely recommend more telephoto than wide angle. But really, just try and keep the setup small. Like, nobody wants to be rustling around in a bag trying to change a lens or do all this kind of stuff. And, just bring a normal backpack. We're done with camera bags. They look way too obvious. People know you're trying to take pictures. Just put your camera in this. Like, what's the big deal? Oh, these Fujifilm photographers are crazy about shutter drag too, so yeah. I guess I'm not so different. I don't know what it is, but there seem to be a lot of photography creators going to Portugal recently, And that's fair, because Portugal is not only very beautiful, but it's also just a wonderful country. But there's a few things that I learned there. And that's that, well, Portugal has been facing some challenges. They got a lot on their plate recently, and I think the most acute of which is the housing prices. Certainly something that's not unique to Portugal. And while we as tourists can't necessarily solve all of the problems of a country like Portugal, our decisions when we travel there do matter. They make an impact. Which is why my last tip, or maybe even request to you, is to avoid booking your travel and especially your accommodation on these travel platforms. Now, I know this is not an easy task. Hotels are actually quite hard to come by in Portugal. There's not that many of them. And sometimes the price difference can be rather extreme. But there's a reason for that. Of course, hotels generally pay their employees a bit more, and they offer a little bit better job security. One of the most important things is that they pay taxes locally. That means in the city in which they operate. And that has a huge impact because that money goes directly to fixing or building the city in which they are in. So from me to you, I ask you to please consider this, because it's one way, if we're not contributing, at least we can reduce our harm when we travel to these places.
And finally, just enjoy the trip. Chill out. Take a chance to look at things with your eyes instead of your camera. You can always come back and take those photos that you missed. Even if you can't, I think if you take more time to enjoy the trip, those photos are going to mean something more to you, and that's what really matters. And the last thing is, respect the damn locals. I mean, they basically invited you to become temporarily part of their society, so show them some respect. Don't take weird photos of them. Do them the service of maybe getting them when their face is kind of covered or shooting from behind or something like that. They're not there to be a part of your photography portfolio. They're basically unpaid models if they're in your pictures. So, be respectful and mindful of that. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. That helps me make more videos, and of course, I'd be very appreciative of the kind of support. Honestly, I make these videos for fun, so it's not like we're trying to grow the channel real big, but your subscription does count, and I appreciate it. You can also dislike the video. I've heard that helps too. Leave me a comment. Do you take photos when you travel? Do you like to include local people who are, unbeknownst in your pictures? Let me know. See you guys later. Thanks for watching.